This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, Panthers fans. You are listening to Meowmix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
And we're here to do our big draft recap. So we have talked about the first three picks a bit. We're going to talk about them a little bit more and then go into the day three picks. And then we'll talk about some undrafted free agents that we did pick up. So let's just sort of start at the top here. Derek Brown. We've kind of talked about him a couple of days now. This is day three or show three talking about him. I'm still super high on it. I think a lot of people are starting to come around on it. Jerry, do you have any new thoughts on Derek Brown that we haven't talked about so far?
I hate it. No, I'm just joking. I really like it. Again, run stuffing defensive tackle. We needed to help against that line, and I think he could be a great building piece for this defense. Like the Fletcher Cox, He's not going to be Aaron Donald putting up crazy numbers. He's not that type of defensive tackle. But I think he's going to help free up so much more.
Yeah, I agree. I think people were upset because Simmons didn't get drafted at that spot. I think seeing what the Panthers did the rest of the draft sort of gave you a better idea as why they picked Derek Brown in that spot, especially considering, that they picked up Chen later, who is sort of a Derek Brown or a Isaiah Simmons light. But yeah, I think I'm still seeing some people upset with the pick. I mean, Panthers Wire had that pick graded at like a C because they were pissed off that Panthers didn't take Isaiah Simmons. But everybody's sort of ragging on them. I think everybody's pretty excited about it. For a defensive tackle, it's not a flashy position, but kind of seeing the way the rest of the draft came around and building up that line, that front seven especially, like I'm stoked about it. I think it's a really good pick.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because Clemson is here and that's why they had their heart set on him. I really like Simmons, and I was expecting us to go with Simmons. But the more I thought about it, especially the way the draft unfolded, I would say Rule and Hurney did the right thing.
I agree. And Simmons was at the top of my list as well. But stepping back and again, seeing what they did the rest of the draft, I'm 100% sold that Derek Brown was the right pick. So let's move on to the second round. Again, these are guys we've sort of talked about a little bit. Gross-Matos from Penn State, our second pick, 38th overall. Still happy with him. I think him and Burns on the corners is going to be an interesting combination, especially flanking KK and Brown. So I'm super excited to see it. I still think that this was a very good pick.
I do too. First round grade on this guy. He fell to us. He's the prototypical 4-3, while Brian Burns is more of just an edge rusher. Mm-hmm. So he'll help with the run game as well. I like it. He has some work to do, but, he's a rookie. All rookies do.
Yeah.
And you get to say, Yeetor! Anytime he makes a sound.
Oh, that was gross. Matos. I'm couldn't be happier about that pick. The next pick we traded up. We got rid of our third round pick and a fifth round pick, moved up a few spots to take Jeremy Chinn at the very end of the second round. Now, I think you do have some thoughts on Jeremy Chinn.
Well, when the first pick first happened and we did our rapid reaction, I said I liked the player. I didn't really like us moving up. Mm-hmm. And the more and more I looked into Jeremy Chinn, the more and more I like the pick and I understand what Rule and Hurney are doing. Everyone who's complaining about Isaiah Simmons not being drafted, this is why. They love this guy, and he is very Isaiah Simmons-like. He's very fast, very big, very strong. I think what the Panthers are going to do this offseason or this season, they're not going to run the typical 4-3. I think they're going to run more of a big nickel where we have Jeremy Chin as the, I'm using quotes, outside linebacker, slot corner guy covering the tight ends. And then we're going to have Tahir Whitehead and Shaq as the only real true linebackers. Then up front, we'll have Burns and those four.
Yeah.
So I really like this pick after I did more research on him. And Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com said that this was the best pick in the draft, that he is the steal of the draft.
Wow. Yeah, he's sort of, I mean, from Southern Illinois, so a bit of a smaller school, not a huge college football presence there. He was sort of a late bloomer. I think he was pretty small in high school before he sort of blossomed coming into college and really coming into his body, I guess you could say, or his body coming into him. Yeah.
It sounds weird, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so maybe, if this guy played one more year of college football, maybe he's a first-round pick. I mean.
Or if he went to a bigger school, like if he grew up a little bit faster,
right.
Went to
Alabama,
Clemson, Alabama, one of those schools,
Right. So, no, I 100% agree with you. I like the versatility that Chin has, which was one of the reasons people really thought that we would go with Simmons, just because he sort of does everything. And Chin he's exactly the same type of player. I know I sent you a little graphic that sort of compared grades on Chin and Simmons in terms of their combine workouts and stuff like that. And Chin was extremely favorable in his comparison with Simmons, and even higher in a lot of areas. So,
and the athlete,
right,
I use that quote.
Right. And I think, I know maybe this was your concern. It was sort of my concern when we drafted Chin was I didn't know a lot about him. He has safety by his name, which made me think, did we really need to trade up for a safety? Mm-hmm. But he's not really a pure safety. He does a lot of different things. So, yeah.
And like I said, I think they're going to run the big nickel as our primary defense, and he's going to be on the field all the time. He's not going to be playing center field back there like the safety Trey Boston, and someone we'll get back to later on.
So I think we're actually probably 3 for 3 in day one starters here. I believe that's entirely possible, if not probable. So unless you want to have any more discussions about these three guys, let's move into the guys we have not talked about yet. Our fourth pick with 113th overall, we finally grabbed that corner that you and I had been waiting on since really the first round almost. I mean, with Tony Pride Jr. out of Notre Dame. And this is another guy that I think we got a pretty good value on. The grades are pretty high on him for us. He's fast. He's got good hands. I mean, I don't know what else you'd want from a guy in the fourth round.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting probably another starter in the fourth round.
Yeah.
I say starter, I think if we had quality guys, he wouldn't be. But I think with this current setup, he's got to start. Or it looks like he's going to start. He is a little bit smaller, 5'11", 193, but unfortunately that seems to be the trend with corners lately.
Yeah, I'm not super upset about his measurables, but he was a 4-star recruit coming into college. He played well at Notre Dame. He is a position of need for us. I mean, I think we maybe got 2 corners here because the next guy, Kenny Robinson Jr., 5th round pick, 152 overall. I think this is another guy that I saw a lot of people talking about was a big steal in the draft.
Yeah. I like Kenny Robinson a lot from I paid attention to him because he was the only XFL player with NCAA eligibility left.
Right.
And I like the way he played and everything. He's 6'2", he's a good player. I think he failed because he did decide to go to XFL, which I think is dumb, but I don't get to make
Yeah,
those
it's
decisions.
interesting. I mean, he played well in the XFL. I think he was widely considered one of the better defensive players in the league, if not one of the best. He did leave West Virginia because of some academic issues. I think from what I understand, he had a teammate or a classmate do a test for him, an online test, and essentially pretend it was him. So, I mean, I've heard of a lot of worse things that guys have done and gotten drafted. So I'm not too concerned about his character when it comes to that. I think he was going to a funeral. Is why he couldn't do that.
Is that why he got kicked out of West Virginia?
That's what I heard the other day.
I mean, because I feel like that happens a lot. I don't know, as I was never a college football player, but I'm assuming that happens quite often.
Yeah, and I would
So
imagine
he didn't rob a bank or anything.
No, he did not rob a bank. At least he didn't get caught if he did rob a bank. But yeah, that's what I heard happened, and it was academic fraud is what they called it, and they kicked him out of school. So. But he was a guy that had, and we talked about him in our mock draft. He was a guy that had offers from Alabama, and Clemson, I think, even when he got kicked out of school to go play there, and he decided to go into the XFL instead to get that 1 year before he could go into the NFL draft. So I love it. Again, another position of need. He's listed as a safety, but everyone, I think, is sort of expecting him to play corner. So, I love the pick.
I have him more playing safety.
Yeah.
He played safety in the XFL, too.
Yeah.
That's why I think they would project him more as a safety. And once we're done with this, I will say what I really think is happening. And then we'll kind of go from there. Just keep moving on.
Okay. Well, I just want to I do want to say that Kenny, he's a bigger guy. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. Who's got a good body. And if he does play safety, that's fine too. But this is a guy, I don't know that he'll be a starter right away. Our safety spots are pretty, I'm pretty happy with who we have at safety right now.
Really, you're happy with Burris?
Well, let me say, if Chin is playing some safety too, then I think I'd prefer Chin over Robinson right away. But again, depending on the type of defense we're playing and all that stuff. Yeah, I could see Robinson coming in and competing with Burris for that spot for sure. All right, so let's start moving towards the really late part of the draft here. Round 6, 184th pick, defensive line, Bravion Roy from Baylor. We knew that eventually we were going to get a Baylor or a Temple pick, and we ended up getting a Baylor pick.
Yeah.
Another guy that people are pretty, they're saying that it was a nice value pick.
Yeah. I feel like this guy is kind of like a Kyle Love type. Mm-hmm. He's the big type of nose tackle guy. He's not going to put up any numbers, but he's going to eat up linemen and filling in for Derek Brown duty. That's what this guy is going to do. And that's great. That's what his role is. Getting that type of guy in a 5th or 6th round pick, that's great.
Yeah, I like going for either boom or bust guys in the late rounds or just guys that are going to make the team and provide depth.
Yep.
And this is a guy who is going to provide depth. Yeah, this is not a home run hitter, but he's going to hit singles,
He's going to be in there. Pace. He's going to be able to help stop the run when Derek Brown and KK Shore are taking a breather. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I like it. I understand the pick, even though it's a Baylor guy, but,
Yeah, but that's okay. You could look at it different ways. Rule thought enough of him as a Baylor player to pick him in the NFL. He knows him. He knows how to coach him. So I'm happy with it.
He knows the strengths and weaknesses. We've talked about this before where basically coaches like to get guys that they know.
Yeah.
That they know their strengths and weaknesses, when to, hold them and when to show them to a certain point.
All right. And let's move to the last pick. Stanley Thomas Oliver out of FIU. He is a corner. And this is this is one of those, like, probably a practice squad guy, right? But again,
Not
people
on this
thought,
depth chart, sir.
I was gonna say, yeah, on a normal team, probably a practice squad guy. But this is another guy that people thought pretty highly of in terms of a 7th round pick. Like the grades are pretty good on him. So I don't know a ton about him. He has apparently a nice wingspan, and he's fast. So what else do you need? I guess
he moved from receiver to corner his
Right.
sophomore year of college, so he's only been playing corner for 2 years. Again, that makes sense with playing at FIU. He wasn't at a big school. Very fast, very athletic. Tries to get his size here. 6 foot, even 192. Maybe not the biggest guy, but still.
Yeah.
Ran a 4.48. Like I said, another athlete.
Yeah.
One thing you could tell about this draft is Matt Rule really, really puts emphasis on athletes.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I like about this guy is because he's switched positions kind of late in his development as a football player, in the amateur ranks. Maybe he hasn't reached that full potential yet. In fact, he almost certainly hasn't reached his full potential at corner. And he's going to have really good hands as a corner because he was a former wide receiver. So maybe he had bad hands as a wide receiver, but bad hands as a wide receiver is excellent hands as a corner. So he could be, one of those guys that picks off a lot of passes when he kind of fully realizes his potential. If he has the potential, we'll see.
Yeah. And he eventually, I'm assuming he's also a little slower diagnosing plays on defense, knowing where he needs to go. One of the weaknesses I've seen is that it takes time for his to flip his hips, which is a big thing with corners in press coverage. They got to turn afterwards, and I guess he's a little slower on that. He's got to work on that. But those are things that corners, 7th round, man. I mean,
yeah, right. You're going, like I said, late in the rounds, you're just going for guys that you think can make the football team.
And have some upside. I think this guy has upside.
Yeah. I like guys like this, guys that are sort of an unknown, right? Especially that late in the draft, where if you don't pick him, he may not get picked at all. So yeah, I love it. So overall, obviously we went through pick by pick here. I didn't hear any offensive picks at all, Jerry.
You are correct.
First time in the history of the draft that a team has used all 7 draft picks on only defense, which is, I think it was definitely needed. Like, I wouldn't have predicted that just because it's never happened. But even in our mock, you and I were, on defense hard. I mean, we all knew that was a need.
Well, the only positions I would have seen us really kind of jump out, and not early, would have been offensive line help, guard, and tackle, tight end. That's it. Everything else, I mean, maybe a wide receiver in the 6th or 7th.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, just those late round guys, 5th, 6th round guys, where you're going best player available. But I think they decided that they were drafting for need in this draft. Or that's just the way the board fell, and those best available guys were always defensive guys.
I mean, I could see it being best available, and the board also, well, I think this guy's maybe a little bit better, but let's be honest, we need another cornerback more than another wide receiver at this point. We only have them 2 spots ahead of them on our big board. Let's go with the corner.
Yeah. Well, plus, Rule even said this, Rule and Herney kind of talked about this after the draft, is they went pretty heavy offense in free agency, and they needed to fill out the defense. And this is a good way to do it. You're getting good, young, cheap guys on defense. So, overall, how do you feel about the draft?
I really like this draft. I think Herney and Rule really knocked it out of the park. And I was discussing this I wanted to say something earlier. Now, with this draft, I think they're going to run more big nickel because we don't have another linebacker on the team realistically. I mean, maybe Jared Norris is still on the roster. I have to check, but he's not a starter. So I think they're going to run big nickel more often than not and probably be our primary thing. And this is how I have that shaping out. I have Derek Brown, KK Short, Etor Gross-Matos, and Brian Burns on the line.
You can't say that name without affecting some sort of accent. Like I become fully Latino as I'm finishing that name.
And then I'm going to move to linebackers. You're going to have Shaq, Tahir Whitehead. And then, like I said, I think we're going to run that big nickel where Jeremy Chin is going to be the other linebacker safety, that tweener guy who covers that tight end. Then on the outside, you're going to have Dante Jackson. Hopefully, he can take a step forward.
Right.
And then at that, if we don't sign a guy, Troy Pride Jr. is probably going to slip in that slot.
Good, yeah.
And then at the safety position, like I said, if Jeremy Chin kind of does that tweener linebacker position, you're going to have Kenny Robinson competing with Burris.
Yeah. And Trey Boston.
Trey Boston's got that locked down. So you're looking at a possible 5 rookies starting on defense out of this draft.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. That's good and bad, right? Good because they're gonna get. It means number one, we had a successful draft class if all these guys are starters. 2, they're getting that experience that they're going to need. But it also means that we've got 5 rookies starting on defense. This will probably be our last episode for a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to be changing diapers and bloodshot eyes and chasing a 3-year-old.
Yep. Baby coming tomorrow. 3-year-old already here. So it's going to be fun times for Steven for a little while. But the good thing is, I know. Well, the good thing is that we're past the draft now, and there's probably nothing that's going to happen for several months anyway. So
no.
But we'll try to do something.
And then we don't even know when the season will start.
Exactly. We'll try to do some fun stuff, maybe in a few weeks. We'll kind of talk about it and figure something cool out. We still have a suggestion, that we that we had back in January of Panthers all-time fantasy team that we'll look at doing. So. Yeah.
And, if there's any breaking news or anything like that, I can always hold down a podcast by myself.
Of course.
It'll just be me talking to myself, kind of like I do normally.
Yeah. You could just pretend, do an impression of me and just talk to yourself, and your other self is me, and we'll just, I'd subscribe. I'm subscribed to that. So. Hey, check out the YouTube channel. Jerry's been doing really good work getting the YouTube videos up and doing some really cool, interesting things with the YouTube channel. So check that out. Is it just Meowmix Podcast? Just search for Meowmix Podcast.
Yeah, I think it's Meowmix Podcast. Meowmix, a Carolina Panthers podcast or Panthers podcast. It should pull up. Yeah,
you'll notice the logo is the same. So. But yeah, we had a lot of traction on our draft recap episodes, so really cool. Good job on that, Jerry. So check that out, and I think that's going to about do it for us. Yep.
You can follow us on Twitter at Meowmix Podcast, or if you have any questions or comments, email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com.
All right, everybody. Until next time, keep pounding.